couple of times about this, and the psychologist identified her to us as a classic battered wife, said she stopped treating her, in fact, because Nicole Brown Simpson would not break off the relationship with O.J. Simpson.
No. They were a very glamorous couple. We're looking outside their home here now, and now we're back in the air over Nicole Brown Simpson's condominium. She and the children moved to this condominium earlier this year, and were living there together at the time of the murders. And speaking of those children, I remember one of the most poignant things in this whole week was, I believe it was on Monday, an officer from LAPD telling the press that they had managed to take the children out of the house without letting them see the terrible tragedy that had happened out in front. Those two children were asleep in that condominium when their mother was murdered out in front and Ronald Goldman murdered next to her, and they managed to get the kids out. Perhaps they took them out through the back and did not let them see what had happened out in front, and that was a point at which it hit.
We now know that van that we're looking at right now, first we thought it may have come from the coroner's office because the coroner does use vans like that. Then we thought it might have been a mobile crime lab because that is sometimes the case. We now know that belonged to a locksmith who had been called to the scene, obviously, to open a lock there. And it's beginning, the piece is beginning to fall into place because the family of Nicole Brown Simpson had gone there today to pick up some belongings, and perhaps there was something there that was locked, and they needed to get it open so they could find out what was inside and take it out if it were important. So that mystery has now finally been cleared up today.
And look at the crowd of onlookers there still in front of that condominium. It has been a mob scene all afternoon, and partly, I have to say, it was because we were told so little.
Yeah.
And we saw so many different things, and LAPD would not say what they were doing.
Could have cleared it up a lot sooner. Our Bob Turr has been heading towards Santa Monica Airport. Santa Monica police have converged on that area. Why? We're not quite sure. Let's go up to Bob Turr and try to find out. Bob?
Well, 6 patrol units from the police department here in Santa Monica have gone to Santa Monica Airport and are keeping the airport under surveillance. Now, obviously, if O.J. Simpson were to go into Los Angeles International Airport or Burbank Airport, he'd be spotted and arrested. So there is some concern that possibly with his connections and with his resources financially, that he might come here to Santa Monica Airport or another small airport and attempt to charter an aircraft and possibly try to flee the area. So officers from Santa Monica Police Department have converged on the airport and have been watching some of the charter operations and keeping those areas under surveillance. And there you can see in this live picture a Santa Monica patrol unit. Now, Marika, if you'll pan left, also the airport security officer over here on the ramp at Supermarine is also maintaining a vigil, if you will, here at the airport, making sure that we don't see Mr. Simpson entering an aircraft and possibly leaving. So once again, an all-points bulletin has been put out to apprehend O.J. Simpson, and that all-points bulletin has been disseminated to all police agencies in the United States, and as well as the federal agencies and Interpol. So with that out, and with the proximity of Santa Monica Airport to Mr. Simpson's home and the area that he normally hangs out in, that they really think it's a good idea to come out here and keep an eye on aircraft. So that's the situation here at Santa Monica Airport. Back to you.
Right. Well, that would lend some weight to the theory then that until sometime this morning, O.J. Simpson was still in town.
Yes, it would.
And because otherwise, you would be looking for flight plans, not people coming out to try to get a plane.
We've been speculating on perhaps O.J. Simpson, being a fugitive for justice, might go to a country where there is no extradition treaty or where he would have safe haven. There is some precedence for that. We have some information here before us. Those who have fled this country to avoid prosecution, they include former state Senator Paul Carpenter. He fled the United States after he was convicted on political corruption charges. Carpenter, though, was arrested in Costa Rica on Thursday, April 14th of this year. Robert Vesco, one of the most famous, indicted in 1973 for fraud and for making an illegal $200,000 campaign contribution to Richard Nixon's re-election campaign. He fled to Costa Rica as well, had the protection of Jose Figueres, the country's former president and elder statesman. congressman. Vesco lived under his wing for the next 6 years. He had a palatial estate in San Jose, a vast ranch in the hinterlands, a fleet of vehicles. He had armed guards, he had everything, and a Boeing 707 for a time. Eventually became too great a liability for that country. He left in '78, next stop the Bahamas, where for a time Vesco occupied a private island estate. After that, Nicaragua, finally to Havana, Cuba, and in July of 1989, NBC News reported that the American fugitive Vesco put the Cuban military into the cocaine smuggling business in 1985. Finally, film director Roman Polanski, of course, fled the United States for France, where he lives as a fugitive even today. A Polish-born director with critically acclaimed movies such as Chinatown and Rosemary's Baby, a fugitive since 1977 when he admitted to having sex with a 13-year-old girl in an incident in the home of actor Jack Nicholson. He fled the country before being sentenced. He now lives in Paris. So there's some precedent of fugitives from this country finding safe haven elsewhere.
There certainly is. We have on the phone right now a former teammate of O.J. Simpson's in Buffalo. Jim was Jim Chiansky is his name, and he was the defensive captain on the team in 1973 and 74 when O.J. Simpson was the offensive captain. They played together then for at least 2 years. Mr. Chiansky, your thoughts right now?
Well, you know, you all must be pretty shocked being out there, and like I told the people here in the news, it's more shocking and more saddening for one of his teammates. And so you can just imagine how we feel.
Yes, we can. Your days of playing with O.J. back in 73 and 74, were you buddies as well as teammates?
Well, I wasn't one of his running mates off the field. We were a very close team, probably the closest team I've ever been on. But I never really did get into his private life, which, you know, a lot of the ball players don't do that. You kind of chum with one or two guys. But I didn't know too much about his off-field escapades or whatever, but he was a tremendous leader on the field. I played against him and then with him and then against him again when I finished my career, and I thought he was athletically was a great leader, great captain. I respected his talents, and you know, it's just a shocking thing to hear what's happening now. Jim,
let me ask you this. Two distinct sides to O.J. Simpson from what we've been told. Universally, those who knew him seem to like him, say he's a great guy, great to be around. But also, we do know that he has an extremely hot temper. Did you ever have occasion to see that temper?
No, and I was asked that before. You know, it's funny. If you'd think that you would see that temper in a game like football, where every play you're trying to hit somebody as hard as you can possibly hit them, and I can't remember an incident where I saw him blow up on the field. So he must have controlled it pretty well, or something could have happened between. I haven't seen him in 17 years. Nobody knows what goes on in someone's private life, and there could be a lot of reasons that we don't know, we don't understand. But I never did see it in the sports life.
Are his former teammates now calling each other? Have you been on the phone this week to each other, talking about it and getting reactions, just sort of touching base with each other?
No, I don't think you'll see that either. I think it's probably more of a press thing now, and I think the teammates want to shy away from that and just try to kind of remember him the way we knew him, you know, and it's something that you almost try not to think about.
Jim, where are we talking to you right now? Where are you right now?
I'm a coach over here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. All right. One thing I was curious about as to how this story is playing in other parts of the country. He had no connection to Charlotte, North Carolina. Is it a very big story there?
Oh, yes. I mean, that's all that seems to be on the news. You know, I've been running some football camps myself, and I'm kind of glad that I've been busy from morning till night to
Understandably.
Really, you know, not be hammered with it. Although in the last hour or so, I've been having a lot of phone calls. So, you know, the story is he is. Unfortunate part, he is such a well-known figure in to all different nationalities, to all different business-type groups, to all different income groups. You know, he's kind of a hero to everybody, and you know, we spend a lot of our time, a lot of my time, trying to set good examples for the kids, and they idolize sports heroes, of course, and
he was the
it's
best.
Unfortunate from that point of view also.
Jim Chiansky, thank you very much for talking to us and giving us some insights
You're welcome.
on your relationship with O.J. Simpson. Back here at home now, let's go back to Michael Scott, who is just outside O.J. Simpson's home there in Brentwood. Michael?
There was a flurry of activity here, but basically what it was is the police detectives that had been here earlier, at least 2 other occasions, returned again, and of course reporters descended on them at the gate to find out if there was any new information. Let me stick my microphone here and see. Well, he's still remaining tight-lipped. We tried to get this detective earlier, and he refused any comment. He was the detective, I believe, who was in charge of the search of the property. Oh, and that was about an hour and a half ago. Back to you.
All right, we are still waiting for Robert Shapiro, who is O.J. Simpson's attorney. He's promised to have a news conference at 5 o'clock, and I believe over in Century City, Michael, when we finally did get a look at the address there. And that's about 6 minutes away. And don't really expect any great news from that news conference, but perhaps some questions about how this all unfolded might be answered.
Be curious to find out exactly when Robert Shapiro last talked to O.J. Simpson, exactly how closely he was monitoring his movements. He's there to represent him, not to follow his every movement, but be curious to find out exactly how he did follow it, how often he talked to him, if he knew where he was all the time.
And what his mental state was the last time that he talked to him, which Gil Garcetti said that his office believed that Shapiro had talked with O.J. Simpson this morning, as I remember.
There's some fear that he might be suicidal under these circumstances. Jim Hill told us a little while ago, he didn't have a chance to say this on the air, but he said he's been getting calls from those who know him quite well, who have expressed a lot of fear about his mental condition right now.
Exactly. We have a live camera set up right now at the spot where Attorney Shapiro is due to have his news conference. Our Joe Avalar is there. Let's go out to him and see what the scene is there. Joe.
We're all waiting, just as you were talking about, and all waiting to ask those good questions that you were just talking about in the studio. What was or what is O.J. Simpson's mental state? What was Bob Shapiro's last contact with him? What does he think about him becoming a fugitive from justice? Is somebody helping him, as the DA and police seem to think? A lot of questions, a lot of speculation here. Any indication is a question that we have, any indication all along that O.J. would run? And of course, he had that gauntlet of security guards through this whole thing. Was that really a setup all along to plan an evasive maneuver so that at the last minute he could get away? Those are the kinds of questions that we'll ask Bob Shapiro. Now, I can't expect that we're going to get answers to those questions. A lot of what we are thinking, all of us here in the press are thinking, is that this is really damage control on the part of O.J. Simpson's attorney, damage control to, one, distance themselves from any plan, or from actually what Mr. Simpson appears to have done, from any plan that or his running away from justice, distance themselves from that, as well as I said, do damage control and try to protect their client as best they can in this situation, because there's not a lot of protection here. We're all set up, we're waiting. Attorney Shapiro should be appearing shortly in just about 2 or 3 minutes, and as I said, those are some of the questions, some of the many questions we'll be trying to ask him. We'll see what he has to answer. That's this latest here. Back to you. Go ahead. What?
Well, Joe, another one of the questions we would have would be exactly who was closest to O.J. during all of this time. If you or I or any other person that we know of was going through something this traumatic, we would have friends, family, loved ones there who would be counseling us and advising us, and who would know everything about us that was going on, everything that was happening around us. Who were those people, we want to find out, who were the closest to O.J. Simpson, who might have been advising him, who would certainly know if he were thinking about leaving, fleeing?
That's a good question, and the last thing I heard was a former colleague, Al Cowling, was the last to see O.J. I haven't heard any update on that, but what's happened to Al Cowling, and does Attorney Shapiro know about that? The last thing that you talked about, you or me, Mike, or Ann, or any of us, in this kind of situation, many of us feel that we wouldn't have received the kind of treatment that O.J. Simpson received if we were charged with the double murder. We suspect that police wouldn't have allowed us to surrender at will. I don't know that Attorney Shapiro will comment on this, but it's certainly a question for him and a question for the police department, even though I know the police department has said they have given him no celebrity consideration at all. You wonder.
Joe, well, I think Gil Garcetti said earlier today that had they known where O.J. Simpson was, they would have just gone right out and arrested him, and they would not have made an arrangement to have Shapiro bring him down, but they didn't know where he was.
Well,
and
they said
that's a question.
You guys were all around him and you didn't know either, but we are not trained to quite the degree that prosecutors and police are trained in following people.
No.
They didn't do a good job following him one way or another. That's cut and dry.
That is for sure. I think there's no question. Pat LaLama is down at Parker Center, where she was earlier today when Commander Gascon dropped the bombshell that O.J. Simpson was not there, had not turned himself in, and in fact, they didn't know where he was. And we'd like to go back to you now, Pat, and relive that moment, because it was probably one of the biggest surprises any Los Angelino has ever lived through.
Oh, I would tell you it would be an absolute understatement to say that the police brass completely unhappy, angry, I should say, at what occurred today. You were just talking about the fact that perhaps they did not follow him well, and when that question was brought up at the news conference that finally occurred at 2 o'clock this afternoon, we got no response from a very serious, very solemn Commander David Gascon. He said, I will not answer any questions about the investigation. When he was asked, weren't you tailing him every minute of the day? And perhaps maybe there was some trustworthiness on the part of the LAPD that they had felt they could believe that O.J. would show up today. They obviously did believe that. He was scheduled to show up at 11 a.m. At 11:30, he was to be arraigned. At 11:45, there was to be a DA's news conference. At 12, there was to be an LAPD news conference. As you know, none of that transpired because he ended up being a no-show. The police will not go into exactly how it was he, quote, got lost. They also refused to talk about any evidence of the case. They did tell us that there is a massive search using every possible available LAPD resource to find this man. And need I tell you, I don't think that the two of you were on the set when this happened. I've never seen David Gascon so angry as when he announced this man is a fugitive, he is a criminal, he is a suspected murderer, I should say, and we will find him, were his exact words.
It was stunning to hear, even if you were listening on a television set or a radio. Pat LaLama, thank you very much. We'll be getting back to you as the evening progresses, and we're getting very close now to the time of that news conference. Mike.
Yes, we are. We hope you continue to stay with us. Lots of breaking developments all the time in this one. Action News at 5 is next.
This is KCBS-LA. Ann Martin and Michael Tuck, Maclovio Perez and Jim Hill bring you Action News at 5.
O.J. Simpson is the target of an all-out manhunt. Good afternoon, I'm Ann Martin.
And I'm Michael Tuck. We have an awful lot to tell you about on this fast-breaking news story, perhaps the most bizarre murder investigation in the history of Los Angeles. Let's go live right now to Robert Shapiro, O.J. Simpson's attorney, who is holding a news conference.
Law enforcement official at any police station, but please do it immediately. I now want to take a moment to bring you up to date on the events of today. Tuesday, I met with the members of the Los Angeles Police Department, Robbery Homicide Division. We met for about an hour. At that meeting, I gave the detectives my promise that I would make available O.J. Simpson for the purpose of interview or surrender in the event they were going to file criminal charges. I gave them all of my numbers to be reached in that event. This morning, at 8:30 a.m., I received a call at my home asking me to bring O.J. Simpson in for the purpose of surrendering on a murder charge to Parker Center. I agreed to have him there by 11 o'clock, although I told them it would be very pressing for me because I had to get his doctors to notify him, to perhaps to be there because of his very, very frail, fragile, and emotional state. At about 9:30, I arrived at a residence in San Fernando Valley where O.J. was. I went in with his good friend, Robert Kardashian. He was just waking up, and I told him that I had been informed by the Los Angeles Police Department that he was being charged with first-degree murder in 2 deaths, that it was a special circumstance charge, and that we would have to surrender by 11 o'clock. I asked Mr. Kardashian to immediately call the 2 physicians or the 2 doctors who have been treating O.J. First, we alerted Dr. Rob Heisinger, who was the first to arrive, who is an internist and has been treating Mr. O.J. Simpson for the last 2 days. And then we notified Dr. Saul Fairstein, a psychiatrist, who has also been treating O.J. for the last 2 days. They arrived at the location. We had previously arranged for Dr. Heisinger to be there today at noon for the purpose of doing a continued medical examination. During the 2 days that Dr. Heisinger was treating Mr. Simpson, he observed a lymph node under his armpit. He needed to do continued tests to resolve the questions he had in his mind. We anticipated the test would take about 15 minutes. The test, in fact, took about an hour. In addition, we had 2 other well-known forensic people who we have asked to come aid in this investigation. Present were Dr. Michael Baden, who is the head pathologist for the New York State Police Department, and Dr. Henry Lee, who is the chief criminalist for the state of Connecticut and is here with special permission from the governor. All of us were together trying to perform our independent functions as quickly as possible and to get O.J. in the car and to the police station. I was in constant contact with LAPD on a 15-minute basis. I was also talking to Marcia Clark of the District Attorney's Office. I had the doctors individually get on the phone and explain the delays, and told O.J. that we had to really get moving. He said he needed some time to talk to his family. He called his children and talked to them. He called his mother and talked to her. He called his personal lawyer and orally dictated and later signed a codicil to his will. He wrote 3 letters that were placed in sealed envelopes that he gave to Mr. Kardashian. I had arranged the following means of surrender with the commander of the Los Angeles Police Department. I was going to come down with Mr. Simpson in my car, being accompanied by the psychiatrist, Dr. Fairstein, and by his good friend, Robert Kardashian. Because we were concerned about the potential for suicide, we were being followed by A.C. Cowlings, his lifelong friend, and Dr. Rob Heisinger. Sometime later in the morning, maybe past noon, I got a call from the commander of Los Angeles Police Department saying that we must now announce that O.J. Simpson is a fugitive. Where is he? I gave him the address. Actually, I asked Dr. Fairstein to give him the address and directions to the home in the San Fernando Valley. He said he would be sending up a black and white unit immediately. At that time, all of the professionals, the doctors, myself, and Mr. Kardashian were upstairs in a rather large house. O.J. was downstairs, and at the time that I was getting the message from Los Angeles Police Department, he was wailing. He was with Mr. Cowling. I did not, nor did anyone else to my knowledge, tell O.J. that the police were coming to take him into custody. The police arrived about 15 minutes later, came into the home. We greeted them. They were very polite and courteous. They told us that they would follow normal procedure, handcuff O.J., and take him to the police station, and they agreed that we would be able to accompany him. At that time, it was suggested that Dr. Fairstein go up and tell him that he was going to be transported in handcuffs into custody. It was at that time, when Dr. Fairstein went in the room to alert him, that we discovered for the first time that O.J. was not present. Al Callings was not present. I have on numerous occasions in the past 25 years made similar arrangements with the Los Angeles Police Department. They have always, and the District Attorney's Office and Mr. Garcetti. All of them have always kept their word to me, and I have always kept my word to them. In fact, I arranged the surrender of Eric Menendez from Israel on a similar basis. We are all shocked by this sudden turn of events. Now I would like to introduce to you Mr. Robert Kardashian, who is one of Mr. Simpson's closest and dearest friends, who will read a letter that O.J. Simpson wrote in his handwriting today. Thank you. Let's go first.
This letter was written by O.J. today. To whom it may concern. First, everyone understand I had nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her, always have, and always will. If we had a problem, it's because I loved her so much. Recently, we came to the understanding that for now, we were not right for each other, at least for now. Despite our love, we were different, and that's why we mutually agreed to go our separate ways. It was tough splitting for a second time, but we both knew it was for the best. Inside, I had no doubt that in the future we would be close friends or more. Unlike what has been written in the press, Nicole and I had a great relationship for most of our lives together. Like all long-term relationships, we had a few downs and ups. I took the heat New Year's 1989 because that's what I was supposed to do. I did not plead no contest for any other reason but to protect our privacy, and was advised it would end the press hype. I don't want to belabor knocking the press but I can't believe what is being said. Most of it is totally made up. I know you have a job to do, but as a last wish, please, please, please leave my children in peace. Their lives will be tough enough. I want to send my love and thanks to all my friends. I'm sorry I can't name every one of you, especially AC. Man, thanks for being in my life. The support and friendship I received from so many, Wayne Hughes, Louis Marks, Frank Olson, Mark Packer, Bender, Bobby Kardashian. I wish we had spent more time together in recent years. My golfing buddies, Haas, Alan Austin, Mike, Craig, Bender, Weiler, Sandy, Jay, Donnie, thanks for the fun. All my teammates over the years, Reggie, you were the soul of my pro career. Ahmad, I never stopped being proud of you. Marcus, you got a great lady in Catherine. Don't mess it up. Bobby Chandler, thanks for always being there. Skip and Kathy, I love you guys. Without you, I never would have made it through this far. Marguerite, thanks for the early years. We had some fun. Paula, what can I say? You are special. I'm sorry we're not going to have our chance. God brought you to me. I now see, as I leave, you'll be in my thoughts. I think of my life and feel I've done most of the right things. So why do I end up like this? I can't go on. No matter what the outcome, people will look and point. I can't take that. I can't subject my children to that. This way, they can move on and go on with their lives. Please, if I've done anything worthwhile in my life, let my kids live in peace from you, the press. I've had a good life. I'm proud of how I lived. My mama taught me to do unto others. I treated people the way I wanted to be treated. I've always tried to be up and helpful. So why is this happening? I'm sorry for the Goldman family. I know how much it hurts. Nicole and I had a good life together. All this press talk about a rocky relationship was no more than that.